And should we be a sanctuary state? And should state money be used to pay for abortion? We start with Simon Sefzik. You have 2 minutes.
Testing. Okay, good. Well, I think we have to acknowledge that this is a difficult and sensitive topic, and I think it's, as I've said before, I believe in the sanctity and the value of all human life. That's where I am, and I understand that Chapter 9 of our RCWs has been clear about this, and the people have voted on this. I did vote against HB 1851 this year, which expanded who is allowed to provide those types of procedures beyond even the wording of the original initiative, which is a physician, and it expanded it to physician's assistants, to advanced registered nurse practitioners, and about 30 other medical categories that weren't even defined clearly in that RCW or in that statute, which was extraordinarily problematic. It also, the bill I voted against, did not allow for any liability protection, so that if something were to go wrong, if a nurse practitioner were to engage in medical misconduct, there was nothing in that bill to hold those medical agents accountable or responsible. That goes way too far. I don't think that Washington state taxpayers should fund out-of-state abortions. I think that's an extraordinarily radical position, and I don't think it's in keeping with the voters of Washington state or the majority of people in the 42nd district. And I think we need to make sure that we are supporting women. We need to make sure that we are funding programs that work, and I think the goal for both sides should be to reduce the number of abortions that are occurring in Washington state.
Just to be clear, when the governor proposed sanctuary for women coming here to Washington state, they were not suggesting that Washington state pay for their abortions. They were saying that Washington state law enforcement should not work with law enforcement from other states to prosecute those women and come up with a case against them. This does not take money to do. In fact, Simon Sefzik's position would cost more money because it would use our law enforcement to prosecute women for private decisions made between them and their doctors. I am pro-choice. I believe that politicians in Olympia do not know what to do with a woman's body more than a woman and her doctor do. I think this is a basic human right, and we need to ensure that we are protecting the will of the voters and the ability of women to get health care. This is crucially important. Every single year, Republicans introduce bills to ban or restrict abortion in this state. Simon Sefzik will not give you a clear answer about whether he is pro-life or pro-choice. He does talk to his donors about it. I'm glad that we now can say Simon Sefzik is pro-life and will restrict our right to choose. I believe that if you are truly pro-life, then what we want to do is figure out ways to restrict abortion. We want to have paid family, not restrict abortion, sorry, make it unnecessary to have abortion. We want to have paid family and medical leave. We want to have wraparound services, and we want to have early learning so women can make sure that their children have all the resources they need to go forward and thrive.
Okay, we move on now to Alicia Rule. You have the same question.
I trust women implicitly to make the decisions they need to make for their own health care, even when they're really hard.
Not health care.
Tawsha, same question.
Obviously, this is a very emotional decision for many people. As a police officer, I have upheld the law of the people, even when I sometimes don't agree with it, because that is the law and that was my job. And the will of the people through the initiative process has been very clear on this particular issue. As I have said the entire time, if you're going to be pro-choice, we need to fund those other choices, and that is the adoption process. It is very difficult and expensive in this state. And to the point that Sharon made about law enforcement and interfering in women's choices, this was asked of me because it's very clear that they don't understand what law enforcement does and doesn't do. If another state asks for assistance in an investigation, through the search warrant process, it isn't up to the police officer to make that decision. It has to go through the county prosecutor, who has to, again, get a warrant that is valid in this state. It is not an individual attack on police officers. Again, that just shows a lack of knowledge of what police officers can and cannot do, and it puts decisions on us that are not actually true and gives us a bad rap. So I don't appreciate that, because it would have to go to Eric Ritchie to get a search warrant if there was some other state asking for assistance on that. We already do stuff like that. We don't assist our Border Patrol agents with things because of what the state is, and I've always abided by those laws. Again, sometimes I don't agree with the laws. Those are not personal decisions, but I have always upheld the laws of the state of Washington, and I will continue to do so.
Dan Johnson, same question.
Okay. Thank you. 1970 and then again in 1991, citizen initiatives passed that in Washington state and legalized it. And as a legislator, I would support the will of the people through the initiative process, just like I would support the initiative process when it came through for gay marriage and legalizing marijuana. It's a voice of the people, and it was an initiative process. And with that being said, I believe the second part of that question was taxpayer funding, for out-of-state folks. In 1971, I did some research on this, and in 1971, when that first initiative was put into law, it was actually also put in there that said somebody getting an abortion in this state would have to be a resident for at least 30 days. And so that would be something that I'd be interested in upholding as well, because that would prevent some folks coming in from out of state and then our taxpayer dollars having to go to that as well. I will tell you what I absolutely will not support is when somebody says that they are 100% all on board with everything that is up to and including pro-choice and everything that that entails. What that tells me is that person is also saying that they are okay with partial birth abortions right up to the moment of birth, that that's going to be okay. And that to me is extreme, and I can't sign off on that, and I won't sign off on that. Not to mention, if somebody is having to go through that, and knowing that in this state a 13-year-old girl without her parental consent can go in and go through that procedure on her own at a time when they need their family the most, I can't support that either. That's a time when you need your family by your side. And I think that that is currently something that exists, and I think that's something where we need to remedy that.
Thanks. Yeah, you know, this is, I think part of the question was, is this a state issue? This absolutely is a state issue. In light of the Supreme Court's decision around Roe v. Wade, this is a state issue now more than ever. I do support the woman's right to choose. It's something that I will stand by in terms of my votes in Olympia. I think that women and not politicians should be making decisions when it comes to this issue, so I'm supportive of that.